to begin.
Hey, what is up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Social Primate Podcast. It's summer, it's hot, but these episodes are going to keep you cool, so check it out. Today, my guest is James Sweetlove out of San Diego, California, and he's the founder, the owner, the CEO, the everything of Heritage Harmony Music. What's up, dude?
Hey, man. How's it going? Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Hey, well, thank you for coming out. Tell me a little bit about yourself, man.
So I guess I'll just run through sort of what I do first, and then I'll tell you a bit about my background.
For sure.
The most recent thing I started, which is what you want to talk about, is Heritage Harmony Records. It is a non-profit digital-only record label, the point of which is to help marginalized and underrepresented artists sort of get the attention that they deserve. And what I mean by that is there's kind of a monopoly on the market for people within the United States, Canada, Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, those sort of spaces. I guess you want to call them anglicized countries, English speaking. They sort of have a monopoly on the music industry. And you can say what you want about that. It is what it is. But there are a lot of fantastic artists in countries outside of that area who just do not get the airtime, do not get the playtime that they deserve. They just don't have access to the same resources as artists in these countries. And it's fantastic that in the last few years, there's been an expansion that started bringing in music from those countries, particularly from Central and South America and the US, because there is such a large Spanish-speaking population in the US now, which is great. But there's a lot of other countries that aren't getting that same representation. And I'm just trying to do whatever I can to try and help those people reach those audiences.
And now I know with the other projects that you're involved with, they're also, in a sense, kind of related to music, right?
Yes. Yep. So the longest one I've been doing is Cave Dweller Music. It's a music review, interview, premiere site, but that's much more focused on sort of the experimental, heady, underground stuff. Heritage Harmony is more looking at things like folk, psychedelic, world music, jazz, blues, funk, that kind of thing. Cave Dweller is more focused on like metal, punk, alternative, that type of stuff. It does have a wider focus, but that's sort of the main area. And then attached to that, I actually host a podcast as well called the Cave Dweller Music Podcast, which is kind of similar to yours. I just have guests on. We talk about 45 minutes an hour. We talk to artists, label owners, PR guys, visual artists, a couple of different people there. And then lastly, I have a PR company called Storm PR, which basically I like to work with smaller labels and independent artists to help promote their music and get them sort of in front of the people they need to be. And that's much more on the heady underground alternative side of things again. It's hence the Storm name. What I do basically is build press kits, mailers, EBKs, as people call them, electronic press kits, and do press campaigns where I'll send that out to a bunch of my media contacts and publications to help do premieres, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's the gist of it across those.
Dude, like I mentioned like a few minutes before, like that looks like it's a lot for somebody, right? Like it's just a lot on somebody's plate, but the fact that you manage and you're able to juggle all these things, I mean, sometimes you're like, oh man, I don't want to do nothing after I get out of work. It's like, nah, you gotta hustle, bro.
It's true. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, what helps, I guess, is I have ADHD, so I need something to kind of like drive my focus. That's why I'll kind of work on one, then work on the next, and it kind of helps me be productive cycling through things. And yeah, it's definitely a time management thing. Like I'll get up every weekend at 7 a.m. on a Saturday and a Sunday and spend the first 2 or 3 hours of my day just working on my side projects and stuff. And because I have a 9-to-5 job Monday to Friday as well.
Okay. No, that's exactly what I'm saying. Because I mean, like, I've heard some people say, like, when you're working on your own project, you're working longer hours, but it feels more fulfilling than just doing like your fucking 40-hour a week and just going home with just like that feeling like, oh, I have to go back. You know, like you do work more, but it also, like I said, it feels more like you, like it's something you love.
100%. It's the expression. It's a little cheesy, but I think it is accurate that if you find something you love, you never feel like you're working.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel that to some extent. Some days I don't feel that. I'm like, why do I do all this stuff? But other days, yeah, I definitely enjoy it. And I will say that COVID, as bad as it was, it definitely changed up the workplace and sort of how that's all structured. Because I work fully remote, which is fantastic because outside, like, I'll do what I need to do during my day. And then in between those things, I'll have time to work on my own personal stuff, which I love.
Honestly, that also takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah. Yeah. What helps me is I don't have a TV in my office. That's downstairs in my house. keep it out of the temptation zone.
Now, with the stuff that you do, so like it feels like it somehow music led you to all of this. Now, are you like a musician? Were you ever like part of this, like world?
So I don't play anything or write music or anything like that. The thing is, I'm really not musically talented, but I love music, and I have loved music since I was a child. My dad was super into music. Like my childhood, my favorite memories is listening to vinyls with him, and that sort of thing. Going on trips, listening to music in the car. And for me, I just wanted a way that I could contribute to the scene because I'm not creative in that sense. But what I can do is write. I have 2 degrees, so I spent a lot of time at university learning to write and that sort of thing. And then I kind of just, a little bit of background. I guess I haven't told you my background. I'm originally from South Africa, and then I grew up in New Zealand, and then moved to Australia. There's a bit of jumping around, back to New Zealand, to the US with my wife, back to Australia, and now we're here permanently. So hopefully to not immigrate again, but be around a bit. But in Australia, I was a legislative analyst for the government. I wrote policy legislation type stuff.
What?
Yeah, very different world to what I do now. And I hated it. Like there's some very fulfilling moments when you had something cool come through, but the red tape and just the structure of government just was very constraining to me. So I moved to the US, and while I was getting my green card, until you get your citizenship, you can't actually work in government. So I had to figure out like what I was going to do, like kind of rebrand myself. And I moved here 2020, literally a week or 2 before they shut the whole country down. So I kind of immigrated to peak COVID. Yeah, wasn't great. So I kind of had all this downtime, couldn't really work because everything was shut down. So I kind of just did a unpaid internship through it was a music related startup that did live events because it was COVID. They had bands record stuff, then they would kind of put together like a concert. So they do like multiple different sets. I'd be the host. I'd string it together through like a live streaming thing as if it was a concert. We'd have guests like chime in and ask questions, and between each band we do Q&A stuff, which was really cool. And that was kind of my experience and foot in the door into social media marketing. And then I kind of went from that to a paid internship, and then from that to my current job, which I'm a social media coordinator for a tech firm that is based in Australia, but they're international. They've got an office here in La Jolla and San Diego. So that's my 9 to 5. So I guess a lot of those skills kind of transfer the social media side of things and the writing skills, and I just put that towards music.
Because PR, from my understanding, it's like public relations, so it's kind of like the face of, like, let's say somebody hires you, you're like the face of them, and you kind of push their brand in a sense, right?
Yeah, what I'll say is that there's a lot of artists who are incredibly talented musicians, but they just don't know how to get their music in front of the people that need to hear it. And being on social media is one way to do it. I don't manage that side of it for artists. I could, but it's not what I'm doing right now. But what I do is actually make sure that their album gets to publications that can hear it, because it's really important, in my opinion. Some people disagree that reviews don't matter, but I think reviews matter. Not for the bragging rights of it, but a lot of people trust those sites. They go to those sites for their information. So if a site that someone trusts says you should check this album out, that person is much more likely to actually go through to that album. And a lot of people just don't know where to find music to listen to. It's something I hear a lot from the older generations is there hasn't been any good music in a long time, which I'm going to vehemently disagree with that, because I personally think since COVID, it's been a golden age of new music. Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed that, but
I definitely have noticed.
Yeah, the output, the sheer output of quality music has exploded since COVID. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One I would say is that people had to take a step back from playing live. So they were forced to say, well, I'm a musician, I want to play music, what am I going to do? So they really doubled down on focusing on writing new music and new albums. So you had a lot of bands that just had like a couple of years where they really couldn't play and just made a ton of great music. And then I think the other thing is a lot of people who never were into music before were kind of going crazy from COVID and needed a hobby. and sort of said, well, I'm going to try my hand at making music. Because I've spoken to a lot of people that started their projects, their bands during COVID.
Yep, some of the groups that I started listening to more recently, you go back and you see the album date of when it was released, and it was between 2020 and like 2022, and you're like, damn, you see that these people were busy, or like they were just waiting for something to kind of like say, hey, you know what, this is all your time to focus on this creativity and really like pick at it, you know, figure out where this is coming or where it's going to take you.
Exactly. And I did the same thing. Like I didn't, none of these things that I've been talking about, they didn't exist before COVID. So it was all like, I was going crazy, not working. I needed something to channel my energy into. So that's how I started all of this.
That's awesome, man. Again, that's when I think about COVID, right? Like I thought myself too, when I was in it, like there was so much free time. It gave me so much time to just think of ideas, test things out, experiment, you know, outside of whatever they were pushing. It still felt like this is my time. Like it's my time to make the best out of it. Like I'm not ever going to get this freedom again, in a sense. And a lot of the people took it and created. And that's where you really saw like these new booming artists or subcultures come out.
Definitely. Yeah. And the other side, because I don't want to take away from anyone's experience with COVID, because it's been rough on a lot of people. The other side of it is there are a lot of bands that were starting to really build momentum as that happened, and it really cut their careers like down. I've spoken to a lot of people, like we were really starting to tour. We had all these tours booked, like international shows booked and stuff. And then, you know, that happened, and a lot of people just never recovered from that. And I really want to say I'm really sorry to anyone who owned a music venue or a live music venue during that time, because it was so rough on those people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even then, like just another part of it was just a human connection. Like, right, we're so used to kind of congregating in groups, kind of to experience music, live music, and when it was all taken away, it just felt like oh man, like that social connection was kind of missing for a while.
Definitely, and I think that's why, I don't know if you've noticed, but since it ended, everything went back to normal. There's been so many bands touring, and so many like classic act, big name bands that can get back to tour that weren't touring before. So it's like, people want to hear music. People are going to pay for it.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I've been busy all like last year and this year, just going to concerts back to back. So like, I definitely get it, because I missed it. Not having it really made you miss it or appreciate the experience of just showing up and being like wowed at the venue, you know?
There's something special about seeing music live as opposed to listening to it on an album. It's the crowd, it's like the lights, it's the energy, and I don't know, it feels like a much more personal connection when you're actually in the room with the artist.
Yeah, like one small argument I was listening to a while back was about like kind of like Spotify, that with a lot of artists, it's very hard to kind of get found, first of all. But secondly, like sometimes you're just playing music on Spotify and it's coming out randomly, and you don't really have that retention to remember who that band is or who plays that song. And then you're like, oh, sounds cool, but fuck, who was that again? But again, it feels like with projects or basically businesses like yours, in this case, you're saying, hey, no, take a look at this here. Like, let me put this right in your face. Check it out. This is what you're missing.
I've always referred to streaming as a double-edged sword, because it definitely makes it easier than ever before for artists to get the music out there. But because it's so easy for everyone to do it, it's very hard to get noticed, because now you're one of a million. Like, you know, before, if you got your music played somewhere, it was a big deal. If someone heard it, like, you're kind of going to blow up. Like, you know, in the old days, you get on the radio and that actually meant something.
Yeah, everybody was like, yeah, well, check it out.
Yeah, now it's like you have to have a couple of 100,000 listens on a song for it to actually mean anything. Because everyone can just have, you know, it's changed. Everything's changed. The metrics of what it means to be successful have changed.
What's your thought on AI music?
Oh, I have very strong opinions on AI. I'm not a fan personally. I feel like we're messing with something that has potential to really hurt a lot of people. I think it has the potential to do a lot of good in the world, but I think we need to really control how it's rolled out and regulate how it operates. Because I think it's very, very easy once something becomes profitable for companies to replace people with it. And I think we're maybe not thinking about the long-term effects on, like you said, the human condition, when you start replacing parts of society with an intelligent, a sentient intelligence. I think it takes the soul out of a lot of things, and I think it makes things a lot more generic and bland. Like, at the moment, I'm not threatened by it. I'll say that because it's not at a point where it can really do any damage yet. But I think that's why it's important now to kind of set those guidelines up of how it's going to operate in the future.
Yeah, before it's too late. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying like a Skynet thing, like Terminator is going to happen, but I think it's actually worse than that. More realistic than that. I think it's that people aren't going to think anymore, and I think that's really dangerous. Like, you know, if you have the ability to click a button and have something created for you, why are you going to write it out yourself? And I think that's really going to damage human creativity.
Yeah, because I had seen, who is it? She was with Elon Musk. It's an artist. I forgot what her name was, but she recently said, like, hey, anybody can use my music for AI creation, and, you know, it's free to use. But her idea was to put her image, her brand out there further. And I was like, I mean, I guess that makes sense. But at the same time, like you said, you're removing that soul, like that passion. You know, people write because they're passionate. They want to express this emotion. They want experience, you know. And when, like you said, you remove that, you are just getting like this soulless digital creation, you know, like it comes from nowhere.
It's just sound. It has no meaning behind it. I think some people are going to draw comparisons to some of the parts of the music industry that already exist that manufacture music, essentially. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Those artists where they use an algorithm to kind of say, this song will be successful if we do this, 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 and this, and then create that solely for that purpose. There isn't a huge amount of difference between that currently and where AI is going. But at the same time, at least there's people involved to some extent.
Yeah, real quick, I Googled it. It's Grimes. That's her name.
Oh, that's right. Yes. That was his ex-wife, right?
His ex-wife, yes. What did I recently listen to? I think Frank Sinatra singing "To the Window, to the Wall." He's like, dude, what the hell? It's trippy technology. Honest, it's funny seeing it, but like you said, there's a lot of things that we're not foreseeing, or at least people are trying to kind of see what the implications are going to be in the future.
I think the scary thing is that if you look at how we regulated social media, we have absolutely no idea what we're doing there. And I think AI is way more complex than that. So I think it's something we really need to start thinking about ahead of time. So, because social media, they kind of tried to legislate it after the genie was out of the bottle. And it's kind of too late now. It's very hard to actually make any significant changes. I mean, they've done antitrust things, and there's other things in place where they give a company like, you know, $500 million fine. And to us, that's like, wow, that's a lot of money. To those companies, that's absolutely nothing. They're just going to ignore it.
Wow, must be nice. But well, I mean, the good thing is people like you looking for actual humans who make human music. So that's awesome, man. Going back to that real quick, where did that come from? Like, what was the initial idea that you said, hey, I want to represent these marginalized communities?
So I've always made it kind of a point through Cave Dweller Music, my review site, to cover artists that don't get as much attention from other countries. Like once every month on that site, we actually have a theme week, and that theme week focuses solely on the music of either one country or one region of the world. And we always pick like places that don't normally get covered. So at the moment, we're running one this week, which is Baltic week. So looking at like Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania. Like some months we've done like Brazil, some months we've done Indonesia or Thailand. And that kind of inspired me to do this, because I was like, wow, there's so much music in these countries that I've never even heard of. And it's just because I'm not looking for it. It's there, just you're not looking for it. So I'm going to say this as well, as is really important to my label. I 100% support Bandcamp. That is my streaming service of choice. That is what I use to listen to music, and that is what my label is based on. And the reason I do that is because Bandcamp is extremely artist friendly. Because you buy the album itself to be able to listen to it. It goes into your library, and then apart from a small fee to Bandcamp, every cent of that goes to the artist.
Yeah, because on the podcast, I showcase artists in every episode, but I put like one song from their discography. I put it on the podcast. So I go on Bandcamp. I find if the artist is on Bandcamp, I'll go and I'll buy the song. Sometimes I don't buy the album. I'm gonna be straight up. Sorry guys, I can only afford the song. I'm sorry. But I buy the song, I don't stream it or download it or fucking rip it off YouTube. I go and I do my part if it's on Bandcamp. Like, I want to support, right? Like $1, $2, whatever it is. I feel like it's important to at least contribute to that art that they're creating, you know?
There's a lot of artists out there that give their music away too. A lot of them are name your price, which is really cool.
Oh, even better, right? I mean, hopefully people do the right thing and still give something. I hope you guys do. But Bandcamp is one of those websites that I honestly, I really do enjoy going on to listen to music, find new artists, like you said, and support them 100% almost directly. But I was about to bring something up right now. Jeez. Real quick, I remember when I was a teenager, I was listening to like punk music. And at some point, I really got into pogo punk. I think at that point, primarily from Japan. So once I got into the Japanese punk music, right, I started going into like punk music from like fucking China, Singapore, Thailand. Like, and it was so cool, man. It was just so cool how everybody had like this different flavor of that same genre that you know and love, but like in different fucking cultural settings. And it was just really cool to kind of experience. And when I first came across your stuff, I started going on Bandcamp and I saw some of the groups that you've already had the chance to I would say sign, right?
I'll say sign. It's like basically the way it works is that I send them a Bandcamp invite, it links the label to my account, and then once it comes to my account, I grant them 100% of the global licensing rights. So anything that I sell goes straight to their PayPal. And then just some of the artists I'm working with, we've got people from, there's one actually from LA, but he's Filipino. He goes back and forth between the two. He plays a really cool fusion style called Razón. I don't know how to describe it. It's a mix of a ton of different stuff. He's got like African, Caribbean, Southeast Asian, Mediterranean influences, really psychedelic, funky, tons of different instruments. There's a dude called Mellow Blues from Thailand. He's based in Phuket. He's originally Singaporean. He plays like a chilled out blues style. It's called like a acoustic blues, I guess. It's really cool. It's very relaxing. There's a guy called Zabi from Peru. He does like trippy electronic stuff, a little bit different to the other stuff I have there. And then being from South Africa, I always make it a point to try to find some more South African artists. So I've got two South African artists I'm working with. One is a duo. They go by, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but it's Noam Yayi. Two guys, they're like a mix of world, soul, jazz, and hip hop. And then the other one is the Fishwives. They're kind of like a dark folk group. They're really cool. And then they got a Russian group called Jeffrey's Jaws that play like psychedelic stoner rock. That's like 70s style stuff. And there is one more, but I've got an issue with the Bandcamp that's not showing up for some reason right now, which is a group from Bulgaria. They like a really cool mix of psychedelic rock and traditional Bulgarian folk music.
Dude, you're basically open to a lot of different genres, huh?
Yeah, my daily listening is all over the place.
Hey, that's cool, man. I need to take some tips because my Spotify list keeps repeating the same songs over and over.
Have you tried Tidal by any chance?
Tidal, was that the Apple one? No, it wasn't the Apple one. It's a Jay-Z one, I think.
Yes, yep. I switched from Spotify to Tidal 2 years ago and I've never looked back. It's the algorithm that recommends music is like 10 times better than Spotify. It's like, it genuinely is awesome. Shows you stuff you really want to hear and like a wide variety of stuff. But on top of that, it pays the most per stream by far of any streaming platform, like 3 or 4 times what Spotify pays per stream to the artist.
Interesting. I'm going to have to take a look into that. Yeah, because I'm telling you, Spotify, it's cool. I mean, you're paying, you get music for free. What else can you want as a consumer, right? But like at the end of the day, it's like, give me something new. Like, I want to hear something that's going to fucking move me.
I understand. It's hard to find something that sounds fresh. I'm not really saying this in a disrespectful way to anyone, but with the Cave Dweller site, the new site, we get so much submitted. I get like 40 to 60 emails a day of people asking me to cover their stuff. And it's just, there's so much. And it's just really tough to stand out. I know how hard it is for bands because I'll check some stuff out and like maybe I'll listen to 4 in a row. I'm like, this sounds the same. This sounds the same. This sounds the same. This sounds the same. And then something will really stand out. I'm like, okay, that's awesome. That's what I'm going to write about. But it's just so much music being made. It's hard to be unique.
Yeah, you know what? That's interesting that you say that because, like you said, that there's so many submissions that you may get that it's sometimes hard to kind of be like, I wouldn't call it mean, but you have to say, okay, you know what? This is not gonna make it. You know, like And that's even me saying that sounds harsh, but I'm not even directing it to anybody. But it's just like, okay, well, this does stand out. This necessarily didn't. Not that your stuff is not important, but
Well, it's a matter of that, but it's also taste is super subjective. Like, just because I don't like it doesn't mean someone who runs another site's not going to really like it. So I might think this sounds a bit samey, but someone else might hear that and be like, dude, this is really sick. Like,
That's also true.
very subjective.
Now, question for you in regards to Heritage Harmony. Like, where do you see that going in the next couple of years? Like, in terms of its evolution and growth?
It's hard to say. It's very fresh. I only started this like 2 months ago, I think, something like that. So it's early days yet. Depending on how it grows, I definitely want to keep going the way it is right now, but I may sort of look at expanding. So if we get enough support, I may look at eventually doing like physical releases or distribution or something like that to help more artists out. But at this point, because it's just me and it's like nonprofits all coming out of my pocket, I'm not there yet. So
Yeah,
just going to keep chugging along, slowly building a roster. And for me, like, one of the main things I ask my artists to do, it's one of the things I say when I sign them is, are you okay with doing this? Because it's important to me is supporting each other. Because I kind of want to build it as not just a label, but a network for artists to actually connect and share fan bases. Because, if someone who's on my label from, say, South Africa likes the music of one of my other artists from Peru and shares it on their social media, like, hey, check out our label mate from Peru. This is some cool music. That's then a whole new market for that person from Peru to reach an audience that they would never otherwise reach. They're not going to actually get the music in front of South Africans any other way.
The fact that your music is touching that market it's already huge in itself. So it's the exposure that counts. And then another thing too is, like, when you think about it, I've never been in a band, but I do a podcast, and I know how hard it is to try to get people to fucking just engage, listen to it. But now when you and even a podcast, they're oversaturated. Dude, there's so many podcasts out there. Like, it's hard to stand out. So we're kind of having the same battle as some of these musicians in terms of trying to get your art in front of people. And it's tricky. So you gotta find ways to kind of be creative, be engaged, network, build these relationships, and again, at the end of the day, it's about building that community. And once you start focusing on community building, I think everything else starts kind of falling into place.
I agree completely. I think a lot of it is building a connection. Anyone can make content, but if you create something that people connect to and you go out of your way to connect with people yourself and make connections, that's how you really become successful in any industry, really. But for sure in music, like over the years of doing all this stuff, I've met so many people, and this is just like me talking about what I think I've done right. People may disagree with me, but what I think I've done right over the years is I've gone out of my way to actually build meaningful connections with people I interact with, and build relationships and grow those relationships. And I've made a lot of friends out of it. And that's like a really cool bonus that I've got friendships out of it. But I think sometimes people underestimate how important those connections are. Like, you can be an incredible artist, but if you don't know anyone, people aren't going to hear your music. So I think people really need to pay attention to who they're talking to. Go out of the way to talk to new people. When they do talk to people, go out of the way to actually build a connection. Like, do something memorable, say something memorable. It's not easy, but I think that's crucial.
That's important, yeah, because again, it's like I recently went to some panel and it was like a networking event. Really cool. Again, you meet tons of people, and it's like you said, like, your art can be fucking awesome, but if you don't have anybody around that you can kind of show it to or have them kind of help support it, like, you're just a good artist with no audience, like, that's just the reality of it. But it's about building the connection, staying in contact, and again, like you said, trying to grow something out of it, like something that's not necessarily in the financial gain type of sense, but again, like, hey, I want to collaborate with you because you can provide this for me in this creative way, or we can kind of help each other, right? Like this old school kind of bartering sense with your skills.
Definitely, 100%. And I think that's what you said is really important. There's something people don't think about is giving back. People seem to want to take a lot, but giving back is just as beneficial as taking a lot of the time, because you really sow seeds that grow into something down the line that benefits you. like, I think I'd like to ask artists, label owners, anyone in that sort of sector to really take some time to help young new artists get established. Because you never know if the guy that you help is going to be bigger than you. You might have been doing this for 20 years and you help some dude who's been doing it for 6 months, but he might explode, be way bigger than you, and then he can help you in return. You know, people are going to pay back those favors.
Exactly. You kind of have to put it into perspective that in order for you to be able to get support, you have to provide support as well. Like, you have to show up to things. Like, you have to show up and just support those people that you're saying that you're showing up for. And it takes time, it takes effort, and I know that's a lot for a lot of people. But it's you don't know which of those opportunities is gonna be the one that kind of takes you to the next level.
Yeah, just 2 points to add on to what you said, because I 100% agree with everything you just said. One is be part of your scene. Like, if you want people to see your shows, go to other people's shows. Like, you know, that's how you make connections, how you do collaborations, that's how you grow fans. Like, if you're an artist and you go to other artist shows, you'll get to talking to people, you'll make connections, you'll meet people, and people will see you as part of the scene, which is so important. And then the other thing is, don't view everyone as competition. There's enough fans to go around. And I've always said this with podcasts, with my review site. I'm not competing with anyone. I'm doing what I want to do, and if I become successful, that's great. But I don't see other sites or other podcasts as the enemy. I see them as potential like connections that I can use to help grow each other's, like to benefit each other. So I get other podcast hosts on my podcast all the time, because I think it's awesome, because then you can kind of share fan bases.
Yeah, one of the cool things that recently I saw Instagram do is like the collaboration post, which it's cool because it shows up on both people's feeds and it looks cool. Like, hey, these people are working together. Like, it kind of gives the post like another level of prestige. I don't know, that's just me, but it looks cool. And I personally think it's one of those things that it makes you want to reach out to that person and be like, hey, is it okay if we collaborate on this post? And they're like, hey, let's do it, or whatever. It's cool. But when they say yes, it's like, hell yeah, this person wants to connect in a way where they want to represent the fact that they were part of this project.
I agree. And the other thing, that it actually shares likes between them. So it's going to actually, like, if one is big, someone's bigger than you and you share a post with them and they have a ton more fans, you're going to hit those likes too. So collaborate when you can.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, man, I do want to know a little bit more about Cave Dweller Music Podcast. You're saying that's kind of attached to the reviews that you do, right?
Yeah, it's attached to the website. So the same brand as the Cave Dweller stuff. So it's me, myself, and another co-host called Brendan. We host that. And then we have a couple of other dudes in Australia that sometimes contribute episodes, because one of them hosts an actual broadcast radio show there. And they line up guests that go on both. And we kind of just, share the interviews.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So you basically have a team out in Australia that you guys fucking kind of back and forth on.
We've got a team all over the place. Like we've got dudes in US, Canada, UK, New Zealand, Australia, Mexico, a couple other spots as well.
Dude, was that an idea that you kind of started off with, or was that something you kind of just joined in?
Cave Dweller, I started. Yeah, that was completely me. And well, initially it was me and my friend Matt. I kind of started it as like a joke during COVID. I made like this really stupid Facebook group. It was called something dumb like Not Your Grandfather's Music Posting Group or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it was just me and some friends. And they started inviting their friends, and they started inviting their friends, and they kind of started growing. I was like, oh, okay, people actually are here for this. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a crack at writing music reviews. So I made a page, attached it to the group, and then it just kind of... It started actually getting traction from actual bands. So then I was like, okay, I've got to make this more serious, and then rebranded as Cave Dweller Music.
Oh, that's cool, man. Social Primate started off as another podcast before, but things kind of changed and it rebranded itself into the Social Primate. But it's funny because, again, you start off with like, I'm just going to try it out. Like, I'm just going to kind of like mess around with it. And then next thing you know, like, oh no, this is growing. I got to take this seriously.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of shocking sometimes. You're like, people actually want to hear what I have to say. Who thought?
For your reviews, you said it's just a website, so it's basically all digital. There's not like anything printed.
No, we've talked about maybe doing like a Zine or something, but it's just so much effort. We're sticking to digital right now. We actually have a brand new website in development that will be up in the next month or two. That's going to be 10 times better than what we have now. And it's actually going to have ad space for artists and labels. So we're going to sell it at a super reasonable price to help people get their stuff out there.
are you constantly like learning or like kind of like doing research on how to kind of fucking handle all this stuff, or is this something you kind of just?
It's like I never stop learning. Like every day there's something new, and then it really helps having like a good team. So like initially it was me, and then we brought on another admin, and it's like it's been slowly growing. But the last year or so, we've really like kind of exploded with like our writing staff and our admin team and stuff like that. So that's why I was like, it's time for a real website. We want to get some actual like revenue coming in through ad space and that sort of stuff. So we're sort of trying to make it more down a professional route as we learn and grow.
Yeah, man, it's something I have to take into consideration, like just learning, because I do learn other stuff like, stuff related to design, motion graphics stuff, but like I need to get better, like social media stuff, like just marketing, like kind of PR stuff. Like I need to fucking step that up, because up until now it's been kind of just like, hey, hashtag here, hashtag there, but nothing that kind of really generates, engagement, right? And I think, again, that's one of those things that you create cool content, but you don't know how to navigate that aspect of it, and you get kind of lost there, And I think a lot of people, creators, want to know, how the fuck do I get my stuff in front of people?
Well, what streaming platforms are you on for like actually listening to the podcast? How many are you broadcasting on?
Oh, that's a really good question. All that, from my understanding, I think it was just maybe say like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher before I think they're gonna shut down, or they shut down already. And I want to say iHeartRadio.
Okay. I'm on about 25. So I did, yeah, and that was just research. I just did a deep dive into the internet and just went through every website I could find and found every streaming service I could possibly find, and then made sure we were on that. And then I linked it all to my RSS feed, which is through SoundCloud. So I upload one thing to SoundCloud, and then it gets pushed out to like 25 other sites.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. At some point, I was doing SoundCloud like a couple of years ago. I don't know. I guess I didn't really know much about it, but didn't really put much more stuff after that. But I moved on to Anchor before it became Spotify Podcast, and I mean, it's been cool, but I might have to rethink about where I'm putting my stuff up as well.
I was on Anchor before SoundCloud as well, but at the time, Anchor had some issues. I think it's gone a lot better now, from what I've heard, since I left Anchor.
Okay. Well, I'll follow up with you. I'm gonna have to get some pro tips after this.
Like I said, I was happy to help anyone that wants to know anything. I don't compete with people who have open knowledge.
Well, I do want to get a breakdown of Shredstorm, dude.
Shredstorm is actually a business. That's actually a registered LLC. So that one, that's the only one I call a business. Everything else is a hobby project, passion project. But yeah, Shredstorm is an LLC because I actually do take money for that one. So that is a PR company. It actually wasn't called Shredstorm until a couple of weeks ago. It was called Cave Dweller Productions, attached to that brand that I had. But people seem to get really confused between Cave Dweller Music and Cave Dweller Productions. I kept getting like tagged in the wrong things and sent to people were submitting stuff to the wrong sites and stuff. So I ended up, I said, you need to rebrand. It's something that's, music related, very obvious what it's about, but different enough that it stands away from Cave Dweller. So I went with Shredstorm PR. And until that rebrand, it was just me, but I've recently brought a friend on, Justin Volas. He owns a record label called Vargas Records. If you're into extreme metal, definitely check that out. He is a graphic designer and he's been helping me out with the PR stuff, doing all the graphic design for me. So, and he's the one that hires me. A portion of that pay goes to him to create all the graphics and get it up on YouTube and all that stuff. So, and then just with what we do, it's basically two things. One is press kits and press mailers, which is a thing on its own as an offering, or you can have as part of a package where we do like a media campaign, which is 1 month or 3 months. 80% of people I work with is 1 month, because that's enough time only for most people's albums to get the word out before it comes out. And that just means a couple of email blasts. And when I say email blasts, I don't mean like generic rubbish to like anyone that has an email address. These are tailored to specific genres, because nothing annoys me more than someone that just, mass email something to everyone and it's not even relevant. I hate that stuff personally, because I get so many. So like say you were a thrash band or something, only people who cover thrash metal, only publications or YouTube channels or podcasts that cover that style of music would be getting your stuff. And what you'd be sent is a press mailer, which would be like a professionally created email that looks like a press kit that has clickable links, branding, all that sort of stuff. It explains like, here's the album art. This is what's coming out. There's a blurb, a quote from the artist about the album. And then I'll write like normally about a couple of paragraphs, which is basically my review of the album that sites can quote if they want to run anything about it. And then I'll have like a link to Dropbox where people can download the files ahead of the release so they can review it. And then YouTube embeds of the singles so that they can, if they cover it, they can embed that in their article or share it or whatever they want to do. So yeah, I charge like $50 for the press kit and email, which is, everyone tells me is stupidly cheap, but it is what it is. I'm trying to help people. I'm not trying to gouge people.
Hey, again, you gotta spend money to make money. That's one thing that I've learned, and it works, people. So I mean, you do gotta invest in yourself, you know, and sooner or later that investment's gonna come back to you, whether it's financial opportunity or a connection. Like it's gonna come back, like regardless.
Yeah. So I just feel whatever I do, I always try to be fair and honest about it. So.
Oh, of course. Now, one last question: like, what has been the response from the artists that you are, you know, helping or collaborating with in general?
You mean the ones that I've been working with Shredstorm, like my clients?
Or just in general, like for Heritage Harmony.
So Heritage Harmony is a weird one because what I'm doing is, you say the same thing, like, I haven't really heard of that before. People haven't really heard of that before. So a lot of people are really cautious because they think it might be a scam. Because like, why does this guy want to help me if he's not going to make any money from it? Which is a very fair question. Like, I don't blame them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people aren't offering stuff like that. So some people are naturally suspicious and they're like, no, I'm good because I don't trust it. And that's fair. We're not going to judge them for that. Other people are really excited and really, really happy to hear from me. And they're like, wow, I've never been contacted by a label in my life. Like, it's really cool that you've hit me up. Like, I'm a Thai artist. You know, I've never had anyone that's been able to help me reach a wider audience. Thank you. So it's a really mixed response. But I think as there are more artists growing on there, they'll be more likely to see it as legitimate because it is quite small right now. So maybe when we have like 20 or 30 artists on it, people will be like, okay, there's a lot of people working with this guy. It must be legitimate.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's like kind of when you have like a small follower count and you're like, wait, this guy's just started his page. Like, you kind of ignore it. And then when it's blown up, you're like, oh, maybe I should follow right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a matter of time. That's all it is. I completely understand where those people are coming from who aren't interested.
Hey, man, but you sound like you're very consistent with your work. So, like, there's no doubt that we're going to be seeing Heritage Harmony just, like, blow up. We're going to be like, hey, you know, that episode of Social Primate, James was on there.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And same to you, dude. Keep killing it with this, and then you're going to be... you're going to hear you on TV and stuff, on talk shows.
Hey, we'll see. I'll be like, hey, everybody who's on the podcast, party at my house. All right. Well, James, thank you so much for taking the time. For people who are listening right now, what's the best way to find your stuff?
We are on all social platforms. So if you want to find any of like Cave Dweller Music, Shredstorm PR, Heritage Harmony, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube. Basically, any platform you'll be able to find us. And then same with you can search the website for Cave Dweller Music. There's a website for Shredstorm PR. And then Heritage Harmony is a Bandcamp. So if you search Heritage Harmony Bandcamp, you'll come straight to our page.
Sick. Well, James, thank you again for making the time. And I hope the next time we talk, hopefully we see each other face to face and we say what's up.
Definitely, man. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, man. Take it easy. Have a good night and stay cool out there.
You too. Bye.
Take care, man. See ya.